So we heard what the education department said over the weekend, but like you always do, you went digging for more data. What have you found?
Yeah, so we're looking at an Ipsos study encompassing about 30 countries around the world, Clement, both advanced economies and the so-called developing world, and asking them, what do you think are the long-lasting effects of the COVID-19 education crisis? And the difference between South Africa and the rest of the world, really interesting. Let's focus first of all on South Africa, and this was quite an important issue. Around about 33% of South African respondents saying mental health would be an issue in terms of the scars that come with the COVID crisis and all the issues that youngsters had to deal with. Around about 43% said they were concerned about qualifications. In other words, would pupils get an exemption to go and study at university, for instance? But this is the big concern. 56% saying that they were worried about jobs, unemployment rates in South Africa, and the ability for young people to actually earn a living. So far and away, this was the biggest concern among South Africans, and get this, Clement, the biggest concern across the entire survey. And you really see that when we look at the rest of the world. Let's take a look at the global averages and some of the concerns that they listed. Here we go, Clement, the longest lasting outcomes of the COVID-19 crisis. So just over 3 out of 10 said that they were worried about unemployment or the job situation, much less than the average for South Africa. Around about 35% saying they were concerned about qualifications, getting a good matric, for instance, getting into university. And the biggest concern out of all of them, mental health issues. So clearly different priorities when you look at South Africa and you compare us with the rest of the world.
Yeah, that's interesting. So school dropouts, that's another problem we've always heard, and the COVID-19 pandemic is just making it worse.
Yeah, absolutely. As you mentioned, we've been talking about the school dropout rate for a long time, and there are different ways of measuring the actual dropout rate, but the Department of Basic Education came out with some numbers late last year, Clement, really concerning. Let's take a quick look at those. So they asked 22 to 25-year-olds whether or not they had completed a matric. So these are young adults in South Africa. This study from 2018, 54% of them said that they had completed matric. So we're talking about 1 out of 2 young adults. The good news is that that rate has started to increase over the last few years. If we look at it every 3 years, Clement, 2009 it was at 45%, just about 47% in 2012. We breached the 50% mark in 2015, and then we got to around about 54% in 2018. So those are the stats as it is. A lot of officials are concerned, though, that it will get even worse during COVID. There's also a socio-economic or a class divide in all of this, Clement. The DBE, the Basic Education Department, released these stats as well, looking at the racial breakdown in terms of school dropouts. Indian households, 82% managed to complete matric by the time they reached that age of 22 to 25. White households, 81%. Coloured households, just over 53%. And black South Africans, 52%. So very much still struggling to overcome the legacy of apartheid. And the experts saying, Clement, that we've got to be very careful when it comes to this COVID-19 crisis. A lot of youngsters have not been pitching up for school this year, and they're concerned that we'll feel the effects in about 10 years' time. Why so much later? Because these are the foundations of education. So youngsters who are not arriving at school now in, say, grade 1 or grade 2, they're missing out on the foundation, and that's going to affect those matric results in 2030, maybe even beyond.